Hi everyone, Elvina from Arcadier here. Today on Inspire, we have Thomas Schickler, founder and CEO of Liquidity Marketplace, a peer-to-peer marketplace for corporates, banks, and non-banking financial institutions looking to source and deploy short-term liquidity. Thomas has worked in financial services for 26 years in operational, technology, and business leadership roles at Citibank, JP Morgan, as well as EBS. Hi, Tom. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's great to have you. How are you?
I'm really well, thank you. And thanks for having me.
Oh, it's our pleasure. No problem. So maybe to start, you can just tell us a little bit about yourself and what prompted you to start Liquidity Marketplace.
Sure, absolutely. So as you referred to, I spent quite a long time in banking, and hence my gray hair. You failed to mention, though, my most recent institution at which I was working, which was HSBC, where I was the head of product management globally for their transaction banking business. One of the areas of responsibility that I had during my latter parts of my tenure at HSBC was helping the group formulate a response to Basel III, which sounds like a really nice city in Switzerland, and it is, but it's also a whole raft of regulatory changes that were imposed on banks following the global financial crisis. And the key aspects of those regulations were that it made taking deposits from institutional clients and lending short-term money to institutional clients much less attractive than it had been previously. Much more capital intensive, higher cost to the bank for doing it, and thus a lower desire to support those types of both deposit taking and lending. And so I could see the problem. And yet when I looked out in the market, there were no meaningful alternatives that could help those clients prospectively achieve similar levels of funding or yields on deposits or short-term cash on a sustainable basis. So that was the market problem. I didn't see any market solution. And I had an idea that had been lurking in my head for a long time, which is, why not create a marketplace where those parties could interact directly with each other without having to go directly through a bank? So I guess maybe I missed my morning coffee or something like that, but I talked to actually our co-founder one day, and we just decided to take the leap. So he leapt from Goldman and I leapt from HSBC, and we set out on this adventure.
Amazing. That sounds extremely interesting. I mean, I'm not a big finance whiz or anything, but that sounds like a very A, big leap, and B, pretty crazy, awesome idea. So why did you choose to to use a marketplace technology model?
Sure. So in the current scenario, pretty much for short-term liquidity, pretty much everybody is dependent on a bank. So if you have excess cash, you put it on deposit at a bank. And when I say everybody, I'm talking about institutional clients. So to be clear, our target clients are Fortune 1000 companies, large banks, and non-bank financial institutions. We are not targeting retail or even small, medium enterprises directly, okay? So that's important to distinguish. So for those constituents, basically, if they got excess cash, they leave it at a bank. Maybe they put it in a money market fund. Or if they need short-term cash, they're going to have to hit their revolving credit facility from their bank, or potentially in the US, they might issue commercial paper. All that stuff requires a bank and a series of intermediaries. And we all know what intermediaries mean. They mean cost, okay? So it's inefficient. And so a marketplace enables people who normally wouldn't necessarily get to interact directly, right? So anytime you hear things like broker, intermediary, et cetera, you can also make that analogous to inefficiency. And so what we intended to do was take the inefficiency out. And the best way to do that is by making a marketplace. So that's what we did.
Using marketplace technology in this area is still quite new and nascent, I assume. How do you educate everybody about it?
I guess, the first thing, I guess, is just because we saw a lot of complexity doesn't mean we should impose it on our clients, right? And so a reasonable test of anybody and anything is, can they explain it to somebody else who doesn't bring any information to the table? Like, I call it the mom test. Can I explain what I'm doing to my mom, who is a lovely lady, by the way, and very smart, better educated than myself, but nonetheless hasn't spent any time in finance, right? So the first thing is, can we explain this in a simple way? And so the thing to do is to look at and explain what we're proposing our prospective clients do in the context of what they do today. So, if they're depositing with the bank, we suggest that, hey, effectively the legal structure is very similar to that. And the only thing you're doing is digitizing your process. Well, that means that it'll be better controlled, it'll be more visible internally, and it'll be more efficient. People get that kind of stuff. I mean, this, especially in this day and age. So by, breaking things down and aligning them to things that they already know and are comfortable with, we can get over that, usual person's resistance to change.
It's a very good point that even though something might be very complex, you can simplify the idea and just make it so that you don't impose that.
That's fundamental. Like, complexity within your business is your own problem. If you make it other people's problem, it's never going to fly.
Very good point. So kind of following up from that, how are you able, because this is like a new idea, how are you able to get larger institutions such as banks to trust your platform, or, larger businesses that weren't previously able to lend and, take money from other businesses?
Sure. So, and there's probably a couple of parts to this. One is, start with the banks. Obviously, they're always going to be concerned, first from a security perspective. But we come from banks, myself, CTO, our lead architect. So we're ex-bankers, and we're used to hardening our platforms to the same degree that the banks do. In fact, myself and our lead technology people all were responsible for global payment systems, one of the systems. So those things need to be highly secure, as you might imagine. So we've applied a lot of the techniques, if not probably we've had access to some technologies that we didn't have in the bank that we believe make our systems more secure. So the first thing is, it has to be secure. The second aspect of it is that when people are trading with each other, they're taking, they shouldn't be taking any risk on us. They're taking risk on each other's ability to perform. And they're able, look, our clients are sophisticated. They're Fortune 1000 companies. Even a Fortune 1000 company like Exxon has their own credit department. So it's not just banks that do credit analysis. Every large company does credit analysis. So they can take and manage the risk. The third element, which has to do with the cash, right? You've got a party is lending and a party is borrowing. We've designed a settlement model for the trades that is kind of unique to what we're doing, which means that we never touch the cash. So no one's ever paying us money to then pay on to somebody else. Remember before I said, anytime you get somebody in between, they're not adding value, they're adding costs. So we don't get involved physically in the payment. We provide the information, but that means no one's taking any financial risk on us. So if we blow up tomorrow for any reason, God forbid, these people can continue to do whatever they want to do, deploy, source short-term liquidity through other channels. There's no money stuck with us. It's not like a crypto exchange where maybe your Bitcoins disappear into the ether.
Got it. So because you don't touch any money, and also obviously you mentioned that, there is a lot of risk and it's all being taken much more in between the two parties themselves and not with you guys. How do you get involved with mitigating any, problems that they might have, or what role then do you play other than just enabling those interactions?
That's really interesting. It's a really interesting dimension that we had to get into. And so we mitigate those by establishing what we call platform rules to participate in the marketplace. So let's say, we have company A is lending to company B, right? And there's a day on which company A needs to make the payment to company B. And if they don't make it on time, and this is an example, then there are rules that govern how much extra A has to pay B, like a penalty interest, if you will, even though they're the lender. So it's through, the rules and the enforcement of the rules. And we're we're a disinterested third party, right? So we look at the rules. If there's a dispute between the two parties, we'll help bring them together to resolve it. But the thing is, as a set of guiding principles, we've established market rules. And so what you'll find in a lot of the institutional exchanges and marketplaces, they all tend to have a set of platform rules that govern those interactions and help inform how to resolve disputes.
Awesome. I mean, it is very difficult as a marketplace to settle those disputes, and it is sometimes, a bit, I don't want to say touchy, but it can be tough at times to.
Absolutely. Yeah, look, I had experience when I was at EBS, which is a foreign exchange interbank dealer, and, weird things would happen. Like somebody would fat finger, which means they're typing out an order, and instead of doing a $5 million order, they put in a $500 million order at a certain price level. And then somebody else or, 5 other people hit the order, right? Next thing you know, we've got somebody calling up saying, I meant to do a $5 million deal, but I did a 500 by accident. And then you got to go talk to the thing. I guess the reality is, in our situation, we're generally dealing with professional trading counterparties and professional traders. And so they're used to dealing with these things. I think in a retail or even small, medium enterprise scenario, there may be more nuance in terms of the types of people you're dealing with.
Very good point. So my next question for you is, what are some of the common pitfalls you see happen in either using marketplace technology or within your industry of fintech?
I think the main issue is if you start with technology and you don't understand the clients and the client's needs and the client's internal and external ecosystems, you can create something, but it may not be that usable. So you really need to know in depth. So, people talk to us all the time, look, we have to go out and raise money. And people talk to us and say, well, you're bankers, so, that's great. But, do you know your clients? But, I've spent the better part of my career actually as a banker, talking to our other our other clients who are banks, meeting with treasurers of some of the biggest companies in the world, meeting with senior finance people at non-bank financial institutions, sovereign. So, myself and my partners, we really understand the use that our prospective clients are going to make of the solution. And what I see in a lot of other instances of fintech is people are creating technology without and capability without it necessarily really solving a problem, or if it is trying to solve a problem, it doesn't do it in a way that fully connects with the user of the solution.
I think it's a very good point, and I think it's something that we keep on hearing as we talk to more and more speakers, and everyone says, you just have to kind of understand who's actually using your product. Sometimes you can get so focused on what you think is a great idea that you don't even, test it out and make sure that it's something that the market actually wants.
Yeah, that's true. And it's also important to distinguish between the buyer and the user, because sometimes they're not the same person. Like in the retail scenario, maybe, but in the institutional scenario, may not. For instance, we could go and try to convince the CFO of some company to use our solution. And he may like the theoretical idea. But if it were really clunky and impossible for the assistant treasurer or even the finance treasury analyst who actually does the trading, if it's really terrible for them, then they'll never use it. And so we could get the buy-in of the CFO, but where the rubber meets the road, if the functionality is not good and we're not addressing the needs of that treasury analyst, then we might have signed the deal and made no money.
Very interesting. So just wrapping up, I have a couple more questions. So you're talking about, there's so many new technologies being built. How do you see, your platform or, marketplace technology evolving over time within your industry?
A couple of dimensions to that. So one, I feel really good from an operational leverage perspective because, well, on the one hand, we're using our solution in the US to solve for basically peer-to-peer lending amongst Fortune 1000 companies. We're also using the same technology with no material incremental development to enable a peer-to-peer marketplace in Southeast Asia, which is doing receivables finance. And so they're two very different solutions. The nature of the parties interacting and the way they interact is quite different, but the technology is totally reusable. Different documentation, same technology, right? So one thing is when you're designing the marketplace, I think it's important to anticipate what the full range of prospective uses, or as many uses as you can. Doesn't mean over-engineer, because speed to market's important and you don't want to waste any money, but still you have to have the vision for what could be. So, and operational leverage is really critical because when you start a business, you think it's going to be one thing. And the one thing I've certainly learned is it's never exactly what you think. So, you need flexibility. So design with that in mind, but don't over-engineer. So that's one key dimension. The other thing is you've got buzzword type stuff out there, and you've got to be careful around, I guess what I would say is finding the right tool for the job. And like one prime example of buzzword is blockchain. I can't have an investor meeting. I can't have a client meeting. I can't even have dinner with my parents without getting asked, how are you using blockchain? And the reality is that we didn't need blockchain to deliver the solution in the US. And in fact, it's not fit for purpose. And blockchain's way too slow. You remember I was talking about how we have to render hundreds of market views. Really boring thing. We coded in C++, and it's totally fit for purpose. It's a boring answer, but it's the only thing that's fast enough to do what we want to do. Blockchain is good for instances for which we don't have current use cases, but we will. So as we expand it to certain markets and certain asset classes, we'll make use of it. And you got to be disciplined around that. So I can't predict all the technologies that may come to the fore. I think we have to be open-minded about it, but we have to be disciplined as well and not just do it for the sake of it, but do it because it's going to add value first to our clients, second to the community, and third to our other stakeholders, regulators, shareholders, and ourselves.
Wow, very funny first about the whole blockchain thing, because there is just so many buzzwords going on, and that is definitely one of them. And also some really great advice there about, how to anticipate and, keeping flexible and disciplined and everything. So on that note, one of my last questions for you is, what's one piece of advice that you'd like to share with everybody today?
Wow, one piece of advice.
Yeah.
Well, I shared a few already, so
Yeah.
we'll rewind the tape and look back.
Maybe
But
your one piece of advice for somebody who is an entrepreneur and wants to start their own business.
absolutely. So the one key thing is, and I have to remind myself of this all the time, nothing happens as fast as you think it will. Because even though you're now in your own business, like I thought things were slow at HSBC or at JP Morgan or wherever else I was, right? Like working in a bank, lots of stakeholders, et cetera. But, even being an entrepreneur, you still have lots of stakeholders, investors, prospective clients, technology partners, other partners, et cetera. And not everybody is as highly motivated as you are to ensure that your business is as successful as it can be. And so you've got to be perseverant and resilient, because you got to keep pushing in the face of adversity, because it's not going to happen as fast as you think, and it's going to happen differently. And you've got to just be able to ride through that. And that means you probably need more capital than you think you do. It means you need more time than you think you need. And it means that you have to have a stomach for whatever that time consumption will do. And it's all right. I get frustrated because hey, I wish we were further along. I mean, heck, it didn't take us that long to code, but it has taken us longer to realize where we wanted to be from a standpoint of, number of clients, amount of trades, amount of money we're making, et cetera. But we know that when we cross over, things will grow so rapidly that we'll be wishing for a little bit of a break. But it's really the time. I think, you've got to make sure that instead of time working against you, that it somehow is on your side, both, from financially as well as emotionally.
Wonderful. That is some very good advice. Thank you so much, Thomas, for taking the time to share with us about Liquidity Marketplace and, just, I don't know, for me, teaching me about financial stuff and how you can actually use marketplace technology within liquidity. I had no idea.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for your time and the thought-provoking questions. It was really fun.
If anybody wanted to get in touch with you, what's the best way for them to reach out?
Email, I guess.
Email, LinkedIn?
LinkedIn. I'm not really a Facebooker, despite the fact that they may be a prospective client, but LinkedIn is great. Email, phone.
All right. Well, we will put your information at the bottom of the screen and within the information. Again, thank you so much, Thomas, for speaking with us today. And to everybody who has tuned in, thank you so much for joining us on today's session of Inspire. And until next time, be inspired.